to Persia, and finally, exhausted, in the middle of the night, somewhere near Meshed, loses the road and finds himself in the middle of the night in the starlight, miles from anywhere, off the road, in this very dangerous borderlands. Even today, this is not somewhere where you want to particularly get lost. It's largely sort of filled with opium smugglers or heroin smugglers running the old caravan routes, working the old smuggling routes between the two countries. And in winter, it's wolves from the Hindu Kush come down, and it's wild, remote country. Sir Henry Rawlinson, this young man on his horse, is just about to give up when dawn breaks, and you can see the first shadow of the breaking light of dawn over the rim of the Koh-i-Shah Jahan Mountains. And he's on his own. He's got a groom and one assistant on another pony. And as dawn comes up, he sees coming down the valley towards him dust rising. It's a party of horsemen heading towards him. This is not something he wants to see. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know whether this is the Persian cavalry, whether this is some party of Afghans about to attack Herat. All in all, it's bad news. So he backs into a little side valley and waits for these horsemen to ride past and hopes that they won't notice him. As he sits looking out nervously at this party of horsemen, he suddenly notices the costumes they're wearing. It's not Persian, it's not Afghan. The horsemen are a bunch of Russian Cossacks. Now, we're a long way from Russia here. There's all the emirates of Khanates of Central Asia. There's Uzbekistan, Samarkand, and so on, all these Central Asian states between, and then there's the whole of Afghanistan. What are a party of 300 or 400 Cossacks doing in this borderland, heading on in rather suspicious fashion in the middle of the night into Afghanistan? And his groom, who is with him, recognizes among the Cossacks a groom from the Russian legation in Tehran. This sighting is to the first Anglo-Afghan war what that little snippet of false intelligence about yellowcake was to the Iraq war. What the rumours of weapons of mass destruction were created over a period of about a year and a year and a half. This little fragment of intelligence is massaged and manipulated and stovepiped by a group of ideologically driven hawks who are determined to force a war and for Britain to go and take Afghanistan. The background to this is that for the previous 100 years, since the French were taken out at Waterloo, two colonial powers have been busy gobbling up Asia between them. The British, under the guise of the East India Company, an extraordinary institution, because it's so much part of history. I think people often forget to think what a weird thing the East India Company was. It's like sort of Microsoft with armies, or McDonald's with a kind of aircraft carrier or something. It's a company. It has accounts. It has an office. It has a board with a table in the middle where people sit round and make decisions. And yet this company has taken over in 100 years an entire rich subcontinent, one of the big centres of the world's trade. And since the 1750s, the East India Company has advanced its frontiers northwards and westwards, as well as overrunning quite a lot of South and Central India. It's found its way up most of the Ganges and is poised now on its northwest tip. The last Union Jack is at Ludhiana, looking jealously towards the Khalsa and the armies of Ranjit Singh's Punjab. At the same time, the Russians have been moving southwards equally aggressively. The Russian artillery has made mincemeat of the old Qajar Persian army and taken over great chunks of what is now Armenia and Azerbaijan from the Persians. It's also taken over great chunks of what is now northeast Turkey from the Ottomans. So the Russians are moving south, and again using the simple techniques of modern Western mechanized warfare with professional infantry units and horse artillery, are making mincemeat of traditional Muslim armies who don't have the same artillery capabilities. And these two, if you look at the map in the 1830s, it's very clear what's coming. That these two rapidly spreading, aggressive imperial forces are imminently going to meet in the Hindu Kush. That someone, one of the two of them, are going to lap up from either side, and the Himalayas are going to somehow be the border. And aggressive hawks in both countries are urging their armies forward, saying, you've got to seize the high ground. Take Afghanistan, and you will have control of the crossroads of Central Asia. If you have Afghanistan, you can move towards Persia on one side and China on the other. You can move up into Central Asia, you can move down the Khyber Pass. This is the vital strategic high ground. Capture this and Asia is yours. In reality, it's pretty pie in the sky at this situation, because there is the Khalsa of Ranjit Singh is one of the most professional and most well-trained armies in the whole region. It's officered by Napoleonic veterans who have moved to Ranjit Singh's court in the aftermath of Waterloo and are training up the Sikhs to be every bit as professional and with a rather better artillery units than the East India Company sepoys. There's also the emirs of Sindh, who are very rich and who occupy the southern end of the Indus. On the Russian side, there is Bukhara, Khiva, Samarkand, and a whole range of khanates which won't fall, in fact, for another 50 years. This doesn't stop the various hawks making plans. And this is what happens with this one sighting of this unit of Cossacks going in. In reality, the Cossacks are there as a diplomatic mission, and the Russians do want to open up diplomatic relations with Afghanistan. But this is not the same as an imminent Russian invasion of Afghanistan and the charging down into the plains of Hindustan of the Russian Imperial Russian Army, which is what the Hawks are claiming it is. So this one little fragment, this one sighting, is used as the casus belli. And this is Vitkovich, the officer who leads the Cossack party. He's turned into sort of the Saddam Hussein of his time, this aggressive officer who is determined to take India away from the British. And so a plan is cooked up. Dost Muhammad Khan, who, according to the Hawks, is implacably opposed to Britain and British rule, is to be ousted, and he's to be replaced by Shah Shuja. Shah Shuja was the grandson of Ahmad Shah Durrani, the guy who defeated the Maratha armies at Panipat in the 1760s and who founded this empire which briefly occupied all of Afghanistan, eastern Persia, Kashmir and Sindh. And the idea, poor Shah Shuja, who is a gentle, literate and cultured man, who unusually for Afghan rulers of this period always offers mercy to his defeated rivals, who writes an autobiography modelled on the Babur-Nama, a deeply cultured man with a wonderful divan of Persian poetry to his name. He is ousted as a young man, and for 30 years he's kept by the British in a small haveli in Ludhiana as an insurance policy for the future. He's remembered after this debate gets going, after the Cossacks are seen heading into Afghanistan, and the first British intelligence officer of the Great Game, the first great spy master of the Great Game, who's an extraordinary figure called Sir Claude Wade, who's sitting in Ludhiana with a network of runners and spies. He recruits, for example, Kashmiri carpet sellers who are going to Bukhara and Tashkent to trade on carpets. These are trained in espionage techniques and run his letters right through into Central Asia. This man, Sir Claude Wade, comes up with this plan. His friend Shah Shuja will be replaced in Central Asia, in Afghanistan, on the throne. Dost Muhammad will be ousted. And with the greatest of ease, he says, the British can then withdraw, having effected what we in our day would call regime change. It looks good on paper. It looks even better when someone comes up with the idea that they won't actually have to do it themselves, they'll get Ranjit Singh to do it. Ranjit Singh hates Dost Muhammad. There's a whole variety of squabbles between the two. They're always fighting over. Ranjit Singh has taken Peshawar from Dost Muhammad. Dost Muhammad's been trying to get it back. And so Claude Wade's cleverest move is not only can we replace this hostile man with our own puppet, we can get somebody else to do it for us. So the plan is Ranjit Singh will invade Afghanistan with British arms. They'll put this guy, after 30 years of retirement in Ludhiana, back on the throne, and we can all relax. Afghanistan is ours. We can be out by Christmas. This is the plan. Sounds familiar, huh? Well, it doesn't work out that way. You'll be surprised to hear. It doesn't work out partly, and firstly, because Ranjit Singh is the wiliest old bugger in the place. And he is far, far cleverer than the British diplomats who are sent to try and negotiate with him. And at the end of sort of 6 weeks of negotiation, what had been planned as a Sikh expedition to further British interests turns increasingly like a British expedition to try and further Ranjit Singh's interests and get rid of his enemy, Dost Muhammad. And there's a final coup de grace just before the expedition is setting off. Ranjit Singh closes the Punjab to the invading force and says they have to go down by Sindh and around the Punjab. They can't even go into Afghanistan. They can't even go into the Punjab. So the whole place is closed off. And Ranjit Singh sits there rubbing his hands, watching the British do his work for them. So, in Firozpur, in 1839, at the end of the monsoon, an enormous invasion force is brought together from cantonments all over northern India. Meerut, hang on, I managed to turn everything off. No, we haven't. Meerut, Roorkee, all these around the back of Delhi. Irregular regiments like Skinner's Horse are recalled into their pastures. They all sit polishing their armour, getting the monsoon rust off it. It is the largest army to be mobilised by the British since they took on Tipu Sultan, who was the last real serious rival they had in 1799. 14,000 East India Company sepoys, 6,000 irregulars like Skinner's Horse, 38,000 camp followers, everything from sort of male polishers through sort of camp prostitutes to cooks to ayers to people that cut the grass for the horses, the saises. There is one regiment brings its foxhounds with it on the way. Another brings 30 camels full of bottles of claret and 30 more full of Madeira. There are 25 camels carrying the officers' cigars. And there are, in all, something like 40,000 camels brought for this expedition. What anyone has forgotten is that there isn't any maps. So off they set, this extraordinary expedition, up into some of the most sort of violent and difficult territory in this entire region. This is the same route that the Taliban now use to get in and out between the Quetta, Shura, and Afghanistan proper. The Bolan and Kojak passes, north from Quetta, remote, difficult territory, very few wells. The British have no idea where the wells are in the first place. And the sepoys who are out there in their winter uniforms, these thick serge outfits, die like flies. There are not enough food to go around. You can see these kind of like the lines of ants heading off in the hills. They've absolutely no idea where they're going, these guys. They hope that Afghanistan is over there somewhere. But the Baluchis take full advantage and shoot and loot the caravans as they're passing. But by dint of sheer surprise, no one would have ever thought that they'd actually get there, and with good reason. They arrive the far side of the Kojak Pass, come down into the Dasht, which again is one of the main sort of Taliban supply routes, and emerge before Kandahar. And the rulers of Kandahar, the Barakzai rulers, are so amazed to see this enormous invasion force, albeit ragged, starving, and falling to bits, that they flee off to Iran without firing a shot. There's some resistance in Ghazni, but a single night attack captures even Ghazni. And by the following year, Shah Shuja is returned to his ancestral fortress, the Bala Hisar in Kabul, and he's on the throne. And the whole expedition looks as if, again, familiar, very like what happened in 2002, the gainsayers have been, the naysayers have been proved wrong. It's a bit of a cakewalk. They've taken Afghanistan with barely a shot being fired. The opposition have run away and disappeared into the hills. There's virtually no resistance. And it is in the ease of this conquest that lie the seeds of everything that goes wrong subsequently. Because the British think that they are like sort of sitting on the outskirts of Bangalore or somewhere. They think they can just put their tents down in nice, neat lines, and that's fine. They don't have to build a fortress. You know, it's just, you know, Infosys or whatever, just beyond there, and SAP Labs maybe a little bit beyond that. And they just put up a few wooden stockade and a little bit of a wooden cantonment, but there's, you know, they're not building enormous fortresses. They're not defending themselves. They think it's easy. Shah Shuja recalls his family from Ludhiana. They move into the Bala Hissar. Dost Muhammad, who has run off into the Hindu Kush, comes back and surrenders to Sir William McNaughton. And it looks as if this is, contrary to expectation. Oh dear, we've lost it. Can I have a techie somewhere? Any techies, Bangalore? No? It is back on. No, good. There's never a techie when you need one. This is so the Memsahibs are brought up too. This is regarded now not even as a punishment posting. So Lady Sale comes from Meerut. My sweet